was me or you, Rob?
I think it was you.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. Good morning to you online. If you're online, we're glad that you're either here in the center or here online. This is our first Sunday back, and I'm actually a little nervous. So I'm very excited. I'm excited to have the doors open. I'm excited to have the energy flowing here in the center. I'm excited that the Bradfords are back, and I'm always excited about my beloved Reverend Karen.
We're excited about you.
Yes. So I will be honest with you that the only thing I'm not excited about is that not being able to come to church on Sunday and wear shorts again. Because we were behind the scenes and you guys couldn't see us, so we could come in shorts and t-shirts and you would never know. So Reverend Karen was the only one dressing up. Everybody else was all relaxed. So anyways, but we are ready. We are ready for the change. We're ready for advancing forward, and I'm just so excited that that our doors are open and people are in the house. So I just want to welcome everybody, and I just want to get the service started with the Bradfords kicking it off for us.
Oh, it's the centering. We're moving right into the, one of the changes we're making is that we're moving right into the centering. So.
Okay. Can I, okay, let me have the mic again.
You're
have
back.
the mic again?
You're back.
I'm back on, thank you. Yeah, I forgot we are changing the music and the service, so we are not going to get all riled up. Instead, we are going to slow down and move into our centering song so we can move into our invocation and get ready for Reverend Karen's message. Thank you. Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, you're welcome. Probably remind me something.
I will make a quiet place within my heart. And I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place within my mind. And I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know. I will make a quiet place within my life. I will wait upon the Lord, wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place.
And here, right now, in this beautiful space, I give thanks For I know that there is one mind, one heart, one soul, one spirit that lives and moves and has its being in, through, and as me, in, through, and as everyone, everywhere. That beauty of the divine, the wisdom, the peace, the joy, the happiness, the health, the wealth, the wisdom and clarity, and so, so much more. I know that that is the presence that is in charge here in this day. That this day is already an exquisite idea in the mind of God, therefore it must be one here. So I know that Reverend Karen is wide open to the divine message that is flowing to her and through her. That each and every person who is here in person experiences the joy of being able to see one another again, live in person and in 3D, and everyone who is listening, be it on YouTube after the fact or Facebook Live, that each of us connects with that way that only the divine can connect us. So I give thanks for this day. I give thanks for the beauty and joy that fills us all in this moment. And I release that out into the beautiful synchronicity of love and law. I release it and let it be. And together we say, and so it is.
And so it is.
So this is from one of my favorite books, In the Flow, from Eric Butterworth. It's from the Reality of Affluence chapter. In a time when the world is facing the grim specter of lack, there is a great need to understand the omnipresence and divine substance. The great truth of the reality of affluence is that there is a legitimate abundance for every person which one can and must claim for oneself, and that any lack of any kind in the human experience is a result of some obstruction of the free flow of creative process. Lao Tzu was teaching the concept of flow 3,000 years ago. He declared that the human spirit has its source in a cosmic flow, even as the rivers have their source in a far-off location. To find one's fountain, he said, is to learn the secret of heaven and earth. Life only asks of you that you flow with it, that you do not resist the inexorable bubbling forth, that you do not crawl into dark corners of insufficiency and erect barriers. Thus, the secret to success is that it comes through you and not just to you. And so give yourself a moment to feel that exquisite, expanding expression of the divine as it flows to you, through you, and as you. You got to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. Latch on to the affirmative. Don't mess with mystery in between. You got to spread joy into the maximum. Bring gloom down to the minimum. Have faith or get an army of liable to walk upon the sea. To illustrate my last remark, Jonah in the well, Noah in the ark. What can you do just when everything looks so dark? Mary said you better accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. Latch on to the affirmative. Don't mess with Mr. In Between. Don't mess with Mr. In Between.
All right, now it's my cue to come back up here. Thank you, Bradfords. It is so wonderful to see people out there in the audience with us here. It is just fantastic. It just feels so good. So now is the time to talk about our Seeding the Future Pledge program. So we pushed it back a couple weeks so we can just tie it all in together. And so this is our first Sunday of the 4 Sundays that we're going to be talking about our program. So our Seeding the Future Pledge program theme this year is Letting Life Expand. I love the theme because it reminds me that life is always expanding and creating. We are the portals of life expands. Our spiritual home is a gathering place for love and support. The Science of Mind teaching provides us the tools so we can live the life that we want to experience. And Reverend Karen's Sunday message reminds us of the spiritual principles and keeps us grounded in the truth of who we are. This year has been very, very interesting. A little scary and challenging at times to live. We all have adjusted to this new way of living and in most cases are still adjusting. The adjustment is life expanding. Life has a way of balancing back to the normal rhythm. And I'm thankful for my spiritual practice, this community, and Reverend Karen. We are going through this together. The image that comes to mind is that our center is like a lighthouse shining its bright light in the West Valley, and we are all ships on this ocean of change. Some of the waves are really big and scary, and I'm proud to be a part of our community. I'm proud of our board, and I'm also proud to be partnering with Reverend Karen. Just as we are managing our personal lives and our home through these changing times, so has our board has been focused on our community. We continue to meet each month to discuss our spiritual home, how we can stay connected as a community and provide loving support through these changing times. Our board and many community members continue to let life expand through all these changing times. So first I want to recognize Ed Price, our board president. And I'm actually feel even emotional saying this, Ed. Ed takes this position as our board president very seriously and personally and demonstrates personal responsibility for the well-being of our community. If you want to grow, if you want to learn new things, if you want to go deeper in your spirit and your personal spiritual commitment, serve on the board. It will grow you. Ed has led the Painting Our Building mission from the beginning. There is a lot of key players that contributed to the success of the building being painted project, but he was a leader to see it through all the way. He worked with so many groups of people, the city, the contractors, and the painting committee. Picking the right color was probably the most stimulating meetings that he attended.
That's a good word.
And now, look at our beautiful spiritual home. This is a perfect demonstration of consciousness. I remember at the beginning of the year when Reverend Karen and Ed and I were meeting, and Reverend Karen told us, this building will be painted in spring. And she said it with her affirmative ministerial voice.
Great authority.
COVID hit, and we still accomplished a 3-year journey to paint our spiritual home. We are all agents of God expressing life, and Ed led this expression regardless of the condition. There were obstacles and challenges, but Ed was on a mission led by Spirit. There is a limitless power in the universe that is operating through each one of us. Our Seeding the Future Pledge program is about letting life expand through our spiritual home. Your commitment allows West Valley Center for Spiritual Living to continue to shine bright and lead our community through the changing times. The pledge program, or the campaign, is a yearly program that we ask you to commit to your financial support of our community. We only formally ask for money in the form of giving intentions once a year. There are 3 primary reasons why we ask for this giving intention. Number 1, the pledge helps us finalize the budget. We're good stewards of our gifts and we want to operate within the means of our budget. Number 2, Your financial support ensures the continuance of our center as we uplift souls and transform lives. And number 3, one of our spiritual practices is giving of our gifts and talents. And by completing a pledge card, you're committing to your spiritual practice and the faith in the law of circulation. So let's talk about the important pieces of the program. The Seeding the Future Pledge program runs for 4 weeks, and this is the first week. Each week I'm going to be focusing on members of our community and that are letting life expand regardless of the conditions. Reverend Karen will continue to inspire us with her Sunday message. So you can mail in the pledge card, or you can drop it off. We have tithing boxes now in the center. You can drop them off in those tithing boxes as well. And then we ask everyone to pray with us, knowing the success of our pledge program. So we had a vision 3 years ago about painting our spiritual home. And we have a vision today and every day for the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. I want to end with a quote from Joel Barker that explains how life is expanding through us. Vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision is just passing the time. Vision with action can change the world. Thank you.
We're all just getting our feet wet in a whole new, everything has changed around. So, good morning. Good morning. Oh my gosh, it is so good. I've been sitting in a chair for 9 months, waiting to put my pretty shoes on, and I forgot them in my office. But that's okay. I'm really happy to be here and to be having an opportunity to, Bradford, so good to have music in the building again. Thank you. So good to see you and to have, a few of you joining us. And let's just see what happens as we rotate that through, because there's not room for all of us to come together. And I don't know, we're just really excited. So what just happened is we've changed the order of service a little bit. And because it's the stewardship program, which we intentionally tied to our first opening day, Reverend Clyde will be giving his little brief presentation before I speak. So in case it's confusing for everybody, because everybody's got the sound booth and everybody's wondering what we're supposed to do next and what shoes we're supposed to be wearing. But I think we've got it. Bro, I did forget the talk over here. I'll probably need the talk, but I got that, and yeah, we're a little, it feels like we're new. It's so bizarre. Everything feels different. Everybody's a little edgy, all of the, the production team and the sound booth. Hi, you guys. Haven't seen you in 9 months. We haven't had Norman in the building. So good to see you back there. Thank you, everybody. And this is the day, this is the day the Lord has made. And in religious science, we like to remind you that when we say the Lord, we're talking about that natural law in the universe through which everything is created and comes to be. And so just in the same way we envisioned that we could get the building that sorely needed painting, that we could get that done, we put things into motion and we began to make a plan around it. And it's such a great example of what can happen when we consciously use the law. So this morning, as I'm looking at having a conversation with you in our stewardship campaign, so these talk titles, I will remind you, were all selected last October. A year ago, October. And it's been fabulously synchronistic to me as a minister to see how timely all of the talks this last few months have been in relation to what's going on in the world and in our lives and all of that. So the campaign is officially kicked off. We are seeding the future, and I love that, Clyde, we haven't even talked about it, but that you remembered that we do now have, we will not be taking an offering in the old traditional way. We'll be doing our offering affirmation, and as you leave or when you enter, you can drop your offering either in the box in the back of this room, or there's one out in the bookstore on the wall by the bottled water. And And you can put your card and your offerings, your pledge cards. So we did a mailing that you should have received already. And we have, I actually forgot to ask Cheryl to have extras available for the service today, but we'll make sure that's available next week. Somebody needs to be taking notes of all the stuff we're figuring out as we're going along here. And the title of my message this morning, to go along with our stewardship theme of letting life expand, the title of today's talk is Think Big. Think Big. And I took the title directly out of a Science of Mind book authored by Dr. Ernest Holmes himself. And the book is A New Design for Living. And we are living in a time where that book is so valuable and interesting that I chose that book and have been speaking from it all year. A New Design for Living, because we are creating our new design for living, even as we are living in this liminal time of sort of a void. Here's the quote, fabulous quote, Think Big, Holmes says. It's a series of 3 questions. He says, how big can we think? How big can we think? How much faith do we have in the creativeness of our thought? And how much confidence do we have in the limitless nature of the power that created us and the world? So he's giving us 3 key points here. He's talking about faith. You know, how big can we think, and therefore, how much faith do we have in the way these principles work in our life as we use them? And then he goes on to restate that in terms of confidence. How much confidence do we have? How much conviction do we have for the way spiritual principles are in place in this universe that not only keep everything in order, but it is that same intelligence in us that's so fun to stand and talk again. And to remember about that power that is in the universe that we always have access to and are activating and not. So I'm sorry, I just have to do this little sidebar. My husband's a huge Dodger fan. And he could not be happier because, you know, who won the World Series? It was the Dodgers. So it was a fun couple of weeks at my house. And for his birthday this year, the children, we have 4 kids, the kids and I bought him a cutout that has been in Dodger Stadium all year. And we bought him a really good one so he'd be on camera a lot. And so since they finished the season, I just finished the delivery instructions, and his life-size cutout's gonna come. I think we need to put it in the back there where he usually sits. Wouldn't that be a good idea? And then when I get to those parts where I usually go, right, honey? Somebody can make his head bob a little bit or something, I don't know. Yeah, so anyhow, he's staying home for a while. He won't be here for a little while anyhow. But isn't that a fun idea? I hadn't thought of that till just now. God, I love the bright lights and having a few people here. It's good for the soul. So Holmes is talking about this method of healing. We used to call it in the early days of religious science, they used that term mental healing a lot more than we use it now. You don't hear it as much anymore. But all of New Thought comes from that idea of mental healing. And when Holmes is telling us how big can we think, what Holmes is talking about is the vastness of the way we can apply these principles in our life. So it's mental healing, but not just for your physical body. Certainly that's a big part of it. But it's about that, the overall well-being. So it is our mental and emotional well-being. It is our the healing the part of creating a healthy living space in our lives, an environment. You know, I bring that into how I want my office to be and how we want the sanctuary to be on Sunday morning and all of that. And it's also in the way that it's in our healthy relationships, and even in our relationship with our finances, which is why we take a month to create a stewardship campaign so we can do all those things that Reverend Clyde already spoke about. So you can see that in a well-rounded way of looking and applying mental healing into our individual lives and into the life of our community, we're talking about the vastness of all of it. We're talking about having a healthy prosperity consciousness, understanding the flow of life and the giving and the receiving that goes with all of that. We're talking about cultivating loving and compassionate relationships in our home lives and with our relatives and our friendships and all of those things and so on and so forth. So it just becomes, from a spiritual perspective, it's like a risen consciousness. It's a way we have that broader view. I thought, because we're sort of starting from the beginning again, it's kind of what it feels like. Oh, that's a great, who is it, T.S. Eliot that said that? Return to that place you once began, but see it for the first time. You know, so I thought, since we're doing that, I wanted to speak about Phineas Parkhurst Quimby today. Phineas Quimby is known to be the father of New Thought. So back in the early 1800s, when he started exploring spirituality in terms of healing, he was a clockmaker. He didn't plan to be a great healer, but he had some experiences, and his experience began in poor health. He had a chronic, debilitating illness for years and years. And on some days he would be so weak that he couldn't get himself up and down out of a chair. And one day he decided he wanted to go out and get some fresh air, and he was going to take a carriage out and have a ride. With just a horse and a buggy. So he goes and he rents himself a little horse and buggy, but he's so weak he can't even get up in the buggy. And then he said, this weekend I read that he couldn't even use the whip to get the horse going, which sounds like a good thing to me. Whipping horses, I don't know, I'm not a horse person, but he was too weak to even do that. And something happened that startled the horse. Something spooked to the horse, and the horse took off, and apparently it gave Quimby the ride of his life. Scared the bejeebers out of him. He had that white knuckle hanging on, but it was exhilarating. And by the time the horse wore itself out and slowed down, Quimby began to realize how good he felt. And he began, because he was a smart man, he began to understand or try to understand what had happened, that excitement had somehow stimulated him to think in a different way. And so I like the idea of thinking that sudden exhilaration gave him a changed experience. It changed his view of life in that moment. And that, in that way, it altered the regular order of his thinking, which I think is a lovely way for us to look at it. So he was energized, and he got well. He got himself well after that. Now, he not only got well, but as he was exploring the details of all of that, he began to have a better understanding and was able to create a method. Interesting thing about Quimby, like many great thinkers, he never published his own work. His stuff wasn't published until much later, and he's not even all that well known except in the New Thought world, but he did such a good job of bringing healing teachings to personal people, so that, kind of John Q. Public could learn to, or Jane Q. Public, could learn to use them and apply these teachings. But what I think he did well was that, and I want you to hear this, he didn't study. Here's what I noticed, because I teach foundation class a lot. When people are learning to use the skills we teach, they often want to know, but why did I get sick? What did I do wrong that brought this to me? Or why did I have that accident? Or why did my relationship fail? And we look in the wrong direction. What Quimby did was he did not study why he was sick. He studied what made him get well. And he focused on that. And in doing that action in itself is what took his focus off his habitual habit of being focused just on his body and how he didn't feel good, and it threw him in a new direction, right? And so now that's what he's focusing on. How did that happen? What's here? Why do I feel so much better? And we take that, and that, I think, is one of the reasons that Ernest Holmes says to us, you can read all the stuff there is to read, but the real art of this happens when we practice it, when we apply it in our own lives. And so I believe he's a really good example. Quimby is a very good example of because see, we've all been there. We've all had something abruptly happen in our life that changes the direction of where we thought we were going, and it can be white knuckling and startle us, and it takes us a while to catch our breath, but we've all had that experience. What he did that we don't all do is he used it in a very positive way. And he developed this great method, and he developed a method. He was also a deeply spiritual man, so he developed a method that he understood now to be the very teaching of what Jesus was trying to demonstrate in the miracles he performed. And he began to understand that idea of the law of mental equivalence was the entire message of Jesus, that what we believe about ourselves is going to manifest as the truth of our reality in the way we live our life. So it's always, the answer is always in that way we find ourselves back to changing our mind, and sometimes we are abruptly interrupted. Sound familiar? Last March, we were abruptly interrupted, and everything shifted and changed in a very sudden, erratic, unexpected way. And I would say that we continue to be aware of the chaos in the world right now. And it's not hard to be startled when you turn the TV on, and even if you're not listening to the news, you just hear a report of the news. Sounds rather scriptural to me. But there's that way that we are witnessing, if we so choose, like Quimby did, instead of focusing on the habitual negativity that's in our face every day, we have an opportunity now to witness the shift that is taking place in the consciousness of humanity. So I know it looks messy. I am not a positive thinker that sticks her head in the sand ever. I think the dark side is where all the great fertile potential is. So I tend to lean into the mystic side, so I'm really comfortable with that. I'm not trying to fix everybody and make it all better. But I will say that when you stand in truth, you do not see the circumstances the same way that you do when you stand in that place of just looking at the problem. So what we have an opportunity, the invitation right now is to call in to know that we are walking through a liminal period. That liminal is in, I believe its Latin root is threshold. We're crossing a threshold, but we're not there yet. And the chaos that we are witnessing in the world is evidence, in my opinion, it is everybody trying to figure out a better way to do things, and we just don't agree on what that is. And of course, we have ends that have strong differing opinions. So if there were some of us in the middle, and there are, because here we are, right in this community, as in every community, as in every family, we've got extreme different ideas, but we all want more love to be on the planet, more peace on the planet. We want to feel safe in this space that we create as the world we live in, and it's up to us to do that in a very personal and individual way in order for this to now contribute to that consciousness of humanity that has been abruptly broken apart. So if it feels chaotic, it's because it is, and I would remind you that spiritually speaking, we would call that chaotic. You know, when things aren't working right and they break apart, that great Swedenborg quote, then God itself, God re-pieces things in a better order. We witness it happening in nature all the time. This is no different. It's just tricky because we're left alone with our own thinking for so many months that we've become dependent on the world has seemed smaller. And in many ways it's not, because look at what we're doing right now. We're reaching out, broadcasting. We have a small room full of people and a greater audience that will be able to access this information online. Head nod from production. Oh, good job, good job. Looks like we're going okay in that direction. So how we think makes a difference. How we, going back to the Holmes quote, how big can you think? How you think makes a difference. How much faith do you have in this process? Well, I think it's time for us to find what we can have faith in and then really focus on that instead of all the other ugly stuff. And how much confidence do you have in, I'm going to be really specific now, in this teaching? You know, I normally would say, how much confidence do you have in the universe as a place for, in the way Holmes would say, there's a power for good in the universe, and we can use it. Well, how much confidence do we have in that power that is always unlimited and accessible? It's not we as individuals that do the work, except you are called to do what's yours to do. I'm not letting you off the hook on that. But in terms of your spiritual grounding, that's completely a personal job. It's up to you. Quimby said, here's a couple of simple things that we don't, I wish it was more in the makeup of who we are. We should say these quotes a lot. Quimby said that the cure, he came to believe, that the cure is in the confidence. Holmes says that all the time in ways of saying, you know, it directly corresponds to how much you believe it. In the same way that Jesus said, it is done unto you as you believe. Quimby went on to say that our problem is in the false belief, and our false belief is, this is good, our false belief is our ignorance to the universal good. In our lack of realizing in a given moment that the good we desire is freely given and ours for the taking. So here we are, planning, seeding our future as a spiritual community. Here we are, letting life expand. The last couple of weeks, I've gone really in depth on those topics. And I think this year we're a little concerned because it's going to be trickier for you to get your committed giving intention cards returned to us. And so a wonderful donor has paid for the return postage. So if you are listening and you're not here right now, you know you don't even have to leave your house. You can put it in the mail. It's ready to go. And there are lots of ways that we can come together now to secure the future of this spiritual center. I'm so proud of us. I'm so proud of us. I thank you so much for staying committed in terms of finances. We have had to, you can't be here, but we still have to pay all the bills, and you guys have done a gorgeous job. And in addition to that, we have had so many people give of their time and their effort. I mean, oh, for goodness sake, we took a lot of people to pull this off, and I'm just really proud of us that we were able to do it. I mean, we had to be really flexible. We had to do things we didn't know how to do, but we are a good example of seeding the future, even when the future is so unknown to us. So we are changing. We are, in a way, you could say we're talking about thinking big. Well, we've been doing church. We were abruptly not by choice, and we did not consent to be abruptly interrupted in the same way Quimby did not consent to the horse going crazy. And like Quimby, we made the best out of it. We've done a really good job at doing that. And so in this idea of thinking bigger in the way that Holmes is inviting us to do, I think that we are doing a bigger job, and we're understanding that more in the way that we talk about those divine desires that want to be expressed on the planet through us. More is, it's so beautiful to think of more as that acronym, mutual oneness recognized. More happens when we recognize we are one with all of creation and with each other. And when we do that in that beautiful sense of reverence, we manage to be a good, strong spiritual community. So here we are. To say that our abrupt interruption was exhilarating is probably an understatement. If you watched our very first Sunday, we actually filmed in the back of it. Julie's going, oh, I hope you didn't. If you watched, it's still on Facebook. We were using cell phones. We had 2 different people filming. It was interrupted, I think, 4 times. So there are 4 segments that morning, and they are still up there on Facebook. And you know what? We did a damn good job. We did it in spite of everything that we couldn't seem to get quite right. And then for weeks, then we tried different people's phones, and we were having problems with the people were complaining they couldn't hear, and we just kept coming back. We just stayed committed. We just kept showing up. It reminded me of that Indiana Jones, where it's like, cross the bridge. There's no bridge. Doesn't matter. You got to put your foot out before it appears. And that is exactly what we did every step of the way. We never wavered. We did not hesitate for 1 minute, and none of us knew how we were going to pull it off. Nobody. And not only is that true for this community, that is true for every church and spiritual organization and workplaces. It shows me how much I can have confidence in humanity when we join together to do what we know we have been called to do. So I want to talk a minute about Meister Eckhart. Meister Eckhart was a Christian mystic from the 13th century. 13th century was kind of the tail end of what they call the Dark Ages. The Middle Ages or the Dark Ages. And the reason they called it the Dark Ages was because the Roman Empire had fallen, and everything seemed to kind of come apart at the seams at that time. And so it was interesting, if you do a little research on it, it says things like it was called the doom or the gloom, and they didn't have enough writers. The philosophers were kind of snuffed out. Things went a little crazy in terms of Christianity. The church really ruled everything, and it was so dramatic. There were witch hunts and the weather changes. They called it, in some sources they say it was like a mini ice age, that it rained in England 150 days in a row, and it rained hard, not like Seattle rain. It rained so hard that 15% of the population died from famine and other things. So the Dark Ages were gruesome, and yet we had the mystics, the spiritual people that don't really know they don't call themselves mystics, but those are the people that we know are most in tune with, it's like that communion with the divine, and they intuit things from a higher perspective. And so Meister Eckhart said, there is no stopping place in life. Let me also mention that in his lifetime was when they experienced the bubonic plague. Sources say it's possible between 75 and 200 million people died in Asia, Europe, and Africa. 200 million people, the bubonic plague and all the other things in the Dark Ages. And Meister Eckhart says there is no stopping place in life. No, nor was there ever anyone no stopping place for anyone, no matter how long or how far he or she has gone. There is no stopping place. This above all else then is true. Be ready at all times for the gifts of God and always for new ones. Right? It's not just count your blessings. Be ready at all times, no matter what circumstances we are living in. Be ready at all times for the gifts of God and expect something new as well. Expect more, because that's the way Spirit works. So we are ready. We are ready. It didn't really feel all that ready this morning. When we started thinking of all the things like, oh, you know what we forgot about? And we won't, I'm sure the next 2 or 3 weeks are going to be kind of clunky, and we're going to have to get feedback on how the filming is going, and the lighting is going to need to be different. I'm not happy with the sound quite yet, but we're going to work out those kinks, because that's what we do. We know how to put one foot in front of the other. In fact, we got a building painted when nobody thought we could. And we called it in, and we did it, and we survived the committee, and I think we're over all the chaos of it, and we're all just, it's like it's just new now. It's just prettier. And you know what I see now? I see that, not now, but I see that we are seating, this minister wants carpeting in here that looks better than this. And so I see that we can look next to doing some of that. Now, I do have a board meeting after here, and they're gonna scold me and go, no, first we have to do the roof. But I'm just gonna keep seeing a beautiful new sanctuary. And we are gonna just trust in this process of life, as I have been saying and stating and preaching, even though I don't preach too much. I've been preaching about this. We live in a universe that's always becoming. It is the nature of life. And so let us, as we seed the future of this spiritual community, because we're focusing this month on our community, we're not forgetting about the rest of the world. We're being good stewards for what we have here, and for the beautiful, I can't wait to tell you what I've been working on. I've been looking at this, what is the soul of our community? And I'll be telling you about that in the weeks to come. But, you know, we've been around for 45 years now. We're getting really close to our 50th anniversary. And many of you were here to celebrate our 40th anniversary. And that was, what a beautiful milestone to share together. So we have a future. There's no question. When I go through the old board minutes from the 1970s and I look at the archival stuff that's been accumulated for this community, I see that we have established ourselves in a profound way to call forward transformation on this planet in our individual and personalized lives, and in this spiritual community, including our beautiful building. So our work is to be open and to think big, and I will close by just reminding you, it's so wonderful to be able to be using this beautiful room. And I would remind you that one of my favorite mottos is that we want to be big for God. And the way that we are big for God is to be blessed, to be grateful, count your blessings, to be blessed, to realize how richly blessed we are, to be inspired, to come together in this community, to be inspired and uplifted by the presence of each other, and then to take that gratitude and to really, really feel it so that it quickens inside of us so that we can be a force for good on this planet. Be big for God, blessed, inspired, and grateful, and that's what I wanted to say today. So, let us do my next most favorite thing to do, and that is anchor these ideas in the words of prayer. I hope you can find my favorite music, Mr. Norman. I'm going to pray. So just get comfortable where you're seated. Oh my goodness, I've been waiting a long time for that. Can you just feel that wash over you? Oh, I feel that love of God as the music stirs me. We just rest for a moment in the beauty of movement of the piano keys, creating that vibration that stirs us in that inner way. I feel the love of God, and I know that right where we are, right here in this space, in this very sanctuary, is the presence of God. It is here as that infinite intelligence that created all the universe. It is here as that remembrance of joy and laughter that we have shared in this room for decades. I feel the love of God, and I know that it is the activity of life within us. And so in that way that we are stirred, it is that way in which we are awakened. We become crispened in our awareness so that we most certainly know in that most dynamic way ever, that right where we are, God is, and right where our loved ones are is that same infinite wisdom of life. I feel it in the way that the lungs breathe that air that we need in our body, and I know that it is that same powerful force that pumps our hearts in order to circulate everything in our being, to replicate that law of circulation in the universe, the gift of the Creator that created all of life. On this day where I stand again in the holiness of this moment of prayer, in this beloved sanctuary, the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living, I feel the love of God. I feel that Spirit moving through this room, and I know that we are being touched by the Holy Spirit so that anything that may appear to ail us or block us or limit us in any way is absolutely burst apart, so that the full movement of life is ours to embrace again, and we become vessels. We become vessels to receive the good that is in store for us. The Father freely gives that movement of grace, that eternal sprinkling of the grace of God that is forever falling upon us. We open ourselves to receive that, to fill ourselves up so that we are renewed and rejuvenated. We stand in that place of knowing that this is our moment of exhilaration. This is the time where we stop and we change our habitual thinking so that we are focusing not on what went wrong, not on what else might go wrong. We focus our full attention on this light and this love of God, and we embrace the joy of it. We embody the peace of it. We feel the goodness of it, and we allow it to shift and change inside of us so that their consciousness of each of us as individuals expands and moves and ripples out into the world, and we allow ourselves to let life expand through us so that we are conduits of good and we are part of the shifting and the changing consciousness of humanity in the most positive, wonderful way imaginable. And so I say thank you, God. Thank you, Infinite Spirit. How grateful I am for this reunion in this divine, exquisite way. I am grateful for this opportunity to just create sacred space on a Sunday morning. And in that full spirit of gratitude, I release these words into the law, knowing it is already done. And together we say, and so it is. Amen.
Thank you, Bradford. I have to tell you, when they played that song for Reverend Karen to pray, I actually really got a little emotional there, and it felt so good. And anyways, I'm just feeling really overwhelmed with joy right now, and just want to make let everybody know again that now is the time for going over our offering. So we're doing it a little differently, and I'm going to quickly go through that. One, we have our beautiful slide projector now showing, and we're actually going to show the law of offering up on that slide projector. We're not, and again, you guys notice we're not giving out announcements because they're all scrolling through our slide show at the beginning of the service, so it's really wonderful. Your tithe or your offerings, if we have boxes in the back of the room, and we're also going to have one of the ushers stand at the door just in case you forget to put it in the box. We do have a plate at the back of the door as well. So we're going to work all this out. So now that I've given all the instructions, I would like us to go in and say our giving affirmation together. So the way that we're going to do it now, at least for the next couple of months or whatever, if you just put your hand on your heart, right? And then just say this just joyous giving affirmation with me. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. And so it is. Your song.
Sorry.
I release and I let go. Let the Spirit run my life. And my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. Let the Spirit run my life. And my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God.
So that's it. Thank you for being here. I love you, and woohoo, we did it. Thanks for coming, everybody.